speaker, we have a quick talk on registries by Robin Finch. Robin is on our board of directors of the APS Type 1 Foundation, and she's also a parent. And she has spent countless hours working towards a registry, and she's going to talk to you about that now. Thank you, Robin.
Jennifer, are my slides supposed to come up, or am I supposed to advance this? Okay. Okay, so this is my first ever PowerPoint presentation, believe it or not. 2 years ago in Toronto, I met Jennifer, and she was talking about a registry. I had no idea what a registry was, didn't know why we needed one. We had Dr. Lionakis and Elise at NIH, who were seeing so many of our patients, our kids, ourselves. Why did we need one? So over the last 2 years, with the help of Jennifer and with Dana Orange, we've made great progress towards getting our own registry together. So I just want to spend a few minutes talking about what a registry is and why we need one. So first thing is, why do we need a registry? And I'd say this is a comic that my 13-year-old daughter Julia made as to why we need a registry. Because so far we don't know anybody famous who's had this disease and who is single-handedly going to find a cure for this disease. And so we need to take the power into our own hands and take all of our information and our tissue samples and our experiences and put it into one place, so that we can get things going and take our greatest resource, which is ourselves, and make it available to all of the esteemed researchers that we know and the many ones that we hope will be coming down the road to hopefully find better treatments and eventually a cure. So what is a registry? A registry is basically just a collection of information. It's experiences, lab results, when you were diagnosed, demographic information, and hopefully eventually a tissue bank, a biobank, where we can put DNA samples, blood samples in there so that researchers can access it. So there's lots of different types of registries out there. Dr. Lionakis, as I mentioned, he's got effectively a registry at NIH. Dr. Kempa mentioned earlier that they've got a registry in Sweden that they've been tracking patients for many, many years, decades at this point. Here's an example of another registry. So this is the registry that is put together by the Immunodeficiency Foundation. I think many of ourselves, our kids, are in this registry. When you visited NIH, you were probably visited by a member of the Immunodeficiency Foundation and asked to submit your information. So this is a great one because it covers all primary immunodeficiencies. There's about 300 diseases, and the idea is that you give them your de-identified information, and they can then help pair you or pair scientists or researchers with you for additional studies. I put this Think Zebra logo at the bottom here because I think it's clever. This is one of their few logos, and the story behind it, and many of the medical doctors here I think can attest to this, that in medical school, many doctors learn that when you hear hoofbeats, you're supposed to think horses and not zebras. And if some of our doctors would have thought zebras before horses, we probably would have been diagnosed much sooner. As an example, my daughter Samantha was in the ER, 3 different ERs, with seizures, and all they said was, she just has febrile seizures, she has a small fever, just go home. It wasn't for months and months before anybody even took blood. And then even after that, it took us another 4 years before we got the APS diagnosis. So in 2016, our board submitted an application to NORD for a grant to put together a natural history study. So we were selected as one of 20 rare disease foundations to put together a natural history study. And so there's a quote here from the president and CEO of NORD about the benefits of it. So they've received funding from the FDA, and they're working with us and these other foundations to get a patient input registry together. So that's what we've been working on. It seems like it'd be a relatively easy thing to do, but there's a lot that goes into it. So here's just a list of what our goals as a foundation are, and this list could go on and on. I've tried to pare it down. I think the first two goals here, I think, are the most immediate things we can hope to achieve. First is to find earlier diagnosis. As I mentioned, it took us over 4 years to get a diagnosis. The Seiferts were lucky to get one in 48 hours, but I think they were the anomaly. You guys probably have stories out there where it took even longer. And I think this is probably the biggest one that I've learned, that this registry can help us find new undiagnosed patients. This is one of the biggest resources we as a group have, is to share our information and our kids' information with researchers. Learning about the disease course over time, as they've done in Europe. You guys have data that goes for years and years, and hopefully Dr. Leinakis is going to, over the many years to come, is going to develop that data going forward. And for better or worse, and it's really for worse, with APS, we just seem to collect diseases over a long period of time. So if we can create any trends, learn any trends about what's coming next, I think that would be useful. Informing research priorities. I think we could use this information to help us figure out what is the best path, or whether the best paths to treatments and the cure ultimately. Uniting patients with the research community. This is our opportunity to become citizen scientists. We've been doing that. As soon as your kid got sick, you all of a sudden became not just a mom, but you're a doctor of sorts, because you're the one that's with your kids all the time. You're the one that knows your kids better than anybody. So this is just a next step for us as a group to come together and keep moving that forward. Improving the quality of care. My goal is that we can learn as much from our doctors as they've been learning from us. So if we can use this data to help improve the care, to improve the information getting out to them so that they in turn can give it back to us, so we don't have to do as much second guessing every time we go. And then last, I've listed here attracting new researchers and investment in the field. I had a conversation with Dr. Weiner at NIH a couple years ago, and she said one of the biggest obstacles that she sees is getting young doctors and young researchers interested in this tiny little disease. And so if we can make our data more readily available, then hopefully we can bring in new people and new money into this field. So here's what our registry is going to look like. It's going to be IRB approved, and that's basically an ethics board approval. NORD is working with a company called Hummingbird, and they are going to give us IRB approval. And also, I believe that we're going to get IRB approval from Rockefeller University as well, because of Dr. Orange's involvement as our principal investigator. It's also going to be HIPAA compliant. You're going to be required to sign informed written consents that detail out what the risks are in signing up for the registry. And there'll be a separate consent if you're an adult, and there'll be another consent if you're consenting on behalf of a minor. Importantly, the data will be owned by our foundation, so we will be able to control who has access to the data so that we can vet the various research initiatives coming in. As I mentioned a minute ago, Dr. Orange is going to be our principal investigator, and Jennifer and I will likely be the co-investigators. And we're working now to put together our registry medical advisory board. And a primary function of that board is going to to help us come up with the right questions to ask so that we can solicit the most useful information. And they're also going to review with us possible APS cases. So if a patient comes into the registry and they don't have either confirmed error mutation, or they don't have 2 of the 3 classic symptoms, but they meet certain other basic criteria that we're developing now, those patients will be put into a pool of possible APSers, and then we will evaluate those cases and recommend them for additional testing. Okay, so here is what we hope to be the evolution of the registry. So I've broken it down into 4 phases. The first phase we hope to launch, actually I hope to launch it by now, but the process is ongoing. The goal, I think, is to launch the first phase by Rare Disease Day, which is going to be the end of February of 2018. So this is going to ask, it's going to be patient input data or parent input data on behalf of a patient. It's going to ask a lot of demographic information, and it's going to ask some disease-specific information. It's going to ask things like, what's your diagnosis? What genetic mutation do you have, if any? What medicines do you take? Basic stuff. That's going to be our first phase. Then we're going to move into phase 2, hopefully still in 2018, where we're going to be releasing more disease-specific questionnaires. So we'll be asking you to kind of bear with us as we go through this process with NORD to kind of launch it with some basic general information, which we hope to be really valuable to source new patients, particularly patients that can't travel to the NIH, so that we can find them where they are. So bear with us until we can get to at least to phase 2, where we can then start asking you more particular, more relevant questions. Then I can't put timelines on phases 3 and 4 quite yet, but we'd like to get relatively quickly to phase 3, where we can start asking questions of your local physicians. As much as we believe that the data we're inputting is accurate, many researchers question the accuracy of patient input data and want to see the local physicians inputting data that they can consider more reliable. So that's going to be, I think, having you guys work with us and us work together with you on phases 1 and 2, relatively easy. The time constraints and the time burden on you are going to be minimal. As you get to phase 3, that might take some more time to rope your doctors in and convince them that this is useful. Also, we can upload medical records at that point. And the ultimate goal is to take this and launch into a biobank, a tissue bank, where you can submit blood, DNA, and it will be stored on ice effectively for researchers to use in the future. In conclusion, we're asking everybody here to become a partner with us in research. Let's take it a step further. Let's take all of our information. Let's put it together. Please give us feedback as we go through this process. We need you to help do this. So please join us in this process. If anybody has any questions, let me know.
Good morning. Just a quick question from me, if I may. Is it expected that the register will be for US APS-1 individuals, or will it be for international, collecting international data?
So the best way I can answer that now is it's going to be compliant with the rules, laws, regulations here in the United States, and it's going to be in the English language. But we're not going to tell somebody that they can't put their information in if they're from out of the country. And as we grow this and we see particular demographics around the world that we need to attract and address, then we will try to do that.
That was basically my question. I just wondered how close NORD and CORD are interacting. I mean, for this symposium, I had hooked up CORD with the Canadian Rare Disease Organization with NORD. And I think it's really important that you reach out to Canadians, because they're really not all that different.
Fair enough. I agree. I absolutely agree with that. We've been trying to think of it as a North American registry. I don't think, Dr. Deal, that we have, I haven't personally coordinated with CORD, but it's a good suggestion.
Maybe I could be an interface. I'll try to help you out.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there one more?
I'm actually Allison Seabold from
Oh, hi, Allison. There's a mic coming for you.
Hello. I can say that NORD hasn't done a lot of collaboration with CORD specifically on the registry project. But I know our software developers in their queue of to-do items is language translation, so that hopefully it would be more compatible with expanding across borders and even within the U.S. populations where English is not the primary language.
Thank you. Okay, one last question. I think Amrita, did you have a question? Oh, wait for the coming.
So we actually just were talking and we're curious as to why or whether there was some capability to include in your IRB EMR retrieval. So just requesting electronic medical records as part of, just to save a big step, I think, at least in your registry acquisition.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that we're going to get through phases 1, 2, and 3 relatively quickly. The NORD platform does have the capability, I believe, to allow records to be uploaded, but we're not quite there yet. But that is an important, important step along this journey, is to get to that as quickly as we can. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Robin. We so appreciate all the work that you've done to get the registry to this state so far, and I know the countless hours it's going to take to get it to be live. It's so important for everyone in this room to join us by inputting their data. We could make a huge, huge difference in how research advances if all the patients and families put their information in regularly. So please help us by doing that.